Thanks for staying with us. So the Lagos State government has vowed to stop illegal dredging operations and flush out operators who have no government permit in the dredging sector from the state. Join us now, excuse me, is Lagos State Commissioner for Waterfront Infrastructure, Honorable Dayo Bush-Alebiosu. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So we've been seeing quite a bit of illegal dredging. In fact, we're used to seeing all this illegal dredging left, right, and center. We're not sure which one is illegal and which one is right. Yeah. So for Nigerians who don't even know what scope of your work is, let's start with that. What exactly is your scope of work and what are you supposed to be doing in your commission so people even know where you fall in the whole scope, the scheme of things in Lagos State?
It's basically, I'm the Commissioner for Waterfront Infrastructure Development. And under the laws of the State Assembly, we have the functions and oversight duties over reclamation, dredging, and things like that. When they are unregulated, they're illegal. When they're regulated, then you know a lot of things, a lot of safety measures, a lot of things that have to be considered. For example, there's what you call the bath survey, sand search, and several other things you do. It affects our lives in different ways. For example, it affects employment. If you take a look at the Gambia, I think they have a population of about 2.1 million people. And with the 2.1 million people they receive about 300,000 foreigners per annum. And of course, the reason why that's limited is because of food security. Why do people visit? They have clean waters. Anywhere you have clean waters, people would always visit. And unfortunately, dredging, indiscriminate dredging, is one of the reasons why we have dirty waters. And of course, that affects the outlook and affects how people choose to come here. I mean, if you spread the 300,000 that visit Gambia on an annual basis over a monthly space, it would work out to be about 20,000 people. So close your eyes and imagine having 20,000 foreigners visiting us on a monthly basis, and picture how it would affect employment, even the mama selling boli, the lady selling akara, bread and things like that. They get to experience our culture. These affect it, and of course it keeps them, nobody wants to visit. Another issue that I have seen that's really very serious is, take a look at Dubai. Even while there's...
I have to pause for a second, to you. I have to, technical issues. Okay. Just going to pick up right back.
All right.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
So, have you ever wondered what happens behind the curtains of a man's mind? Or perhaps you're one of those who wonder what men talk about when they gather. Well, here goes. Imagine what it takes to put together the perfect cocktail. Or maybe mocktail. We need a bit of sports, a sprinkling of current affairs, some very deep topical issues, and last but not the least, a healthy dose of grumbling of those we love to hate. And yes, you guessed it, women. So, if you catch the drift, then you're onto something. We will provide you with the right insights into most of your curiosities, right here within this beautiful cocktail we call the Black Table.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have the commissioner with us. Yes, you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I was saying that one of the ones that really scares me, that gives me a lot of concern, is when you look at Dubai, for example. After reclaiming those islands they reclaimed, they ran out of sand. So now Dubai has to, now they go to import sand from Australia, I believe.
Wow.
So you can imagine, I mean, the cost of things at the moment, and should that happen, God forbid. But of course, there's a possibility of that if we do not, if it's not controlled, if it's not stemmed.
Okay.
And
I was going to, sorry, this is just a mini. Why don't you just go to Sahara Desert and just fetch the...
it's a totally different type of sand. It can't be used. When you look at the composition, the shape,
Okay.
you know, it's smooth. It's different from sand from this. I mean, it's the second most sought after natural resource after water.
Wow. Sand.
Oh yes, it's used in everything. It's used for the elastic in our underwear, toothpaste. Around us, there's sand, you know,
Yes.
Okay.
bridges and so on.
When you say, you know, the possibility of running out or how it affects an environment, I would say dredging is Lagos. Lagos is dredging. I grew up in schooling in Ojo. I would sit at the waterfront and see everybody in the business. In fact, they pass it down to children. How much of it really would affect the environment? How bad can it be? Or, you know, looking into it, will it not deny people employment anyway?
Not at all. We're not saying we won't dredge. We can't dredge. We can't survive without dredging. But we're saying it has to be controlled. If it's not controlled, it becomes a mess. I'll give you an example of how it affects every day our households. For example, what is dredging? It's basically just sucking sand out of water. And on top of the base of water, you know, you have microorganisms, and these microorganisms is food for fish. And of course, every time you disturb it, you mess it up. You mess up their habitat, you mess up their food. So what happens is they go further, and of course the fishermen have to go further after them. And the further you go, the more tedious it is to get it, the more expensive it is. So fish that's meant to cost on a regular day 500 naira, you end up paying 5,000 naira for. It affects us in every way that we can't even imagine. And when you refer to the ones who use baskets, like their great-grandfathers, their forefathers did that. That's their trade. I believe they should even be protected, you know, just like the native Indians are protected in North America. They're not the problems. The problem are those who dredge indiscriminately at alarming rates. And of course, they reclaim, because the sand dredged is used for two reasons. The first is to reclaim land, which is also done illegally, and it affects the alignment of the states. And the second is they reclaim to stockpile. And those are the guys who you go to when you're building, you tell, oh, supply me a tipper of sand, supply me 10 tons of sand, and things like that.
So my question is, how are they able to carry out such massive indiscriminate dredging without government awareness?
Well, every community is aware. They see them because they some are afraid, some just some are out of members of the community. But of course, there's been several issues. There's been this issue in the past several years with Lagos State, Newa, not just Lagos State, coastal states and Newa. And I think the case is in court at the moment. Well, there was the High Court judgment which went in favor of Newa, and then the appeal court judgment went in favor of Lagos State, saying that states are allowed to regulate their waters. And of course, Newa approached the Supreme Court for interpretation.
Okay.
I think that comes up sometime in January. But regardless, we need to know the amount of sand that's pumped. I'll give you an example. You just talked about when you were in school. How many beaches do we see right now? Because every time you dredge, you're taking out sand.
Yes.
And nature has a way it works. What happens is it compensates for what's been taken out. So nature sends out, in layman's term, it sends out water to reclaim sand. And where's the first place water goes?
Beaches.
That's right. It mops up the sand and brings it in. When all that is done, it leads to even erosion, where it affects roads and things like that.
Yeah. So listening to you now, I can hear some of the negative effects of dredging.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know that before. And I'm wondering, what is government's plan to sensitize the people on the negative effects of dredging and how it affects everyday life, so that they can also be like a watchdog for those illegal dredgers around? They can, have conversations with government if they see that people who are not licensed are coming into certain places to dredge.
Well, as the saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. We've just started that now. We're also reviewing our policies. It's important for us to know the amount of sand that's being dredged. In the past, we gave licenses or permits for dredging. Of course, they could go, but now we're saying, well, no, we need to, when you're licensed, it says, yes, you can dredge, but then we would have to control the quantity you dredge, which means we have to keep an eye on the amount dredged. If you, for example, contact me as a dredging company, what I would do is, by law, I would have to inform the state that Mariah has contacted me to help her dredge, and you would also inform the state saying that I have contacted Dayo Bush Dredging Company to also help you reclaim.
That's a lot of requests coming.
Oh yes, I mean, we have to
every single day.
Yeah, we have to do what we have to do. As a matter of fact, there should be licenses from start to finish. After all, there's something you call pro forma invoice when it's requested anyway. So this is it's going to be our kind of pro forma invoice, if you know what I mean.
Aside from the issue of dredging, when I said I'm also in charge of Waterfront
Infrastructure Development. Yes.
So, because when I see our waterfronts, I'm thinking tourism. I'm thinking opportunities for people to actually come and enjoy the aquatic splendor.
That's right.
But we don't see that, When we see attempts trying to make it look nice, but what are your plans exactly to improve on our waterfronts, make it more attractive? And I think...
let me add, especially you sit at some waterfront joints or places and there's plastic and dirt and all around. Yes.
That's why we have a lot of ministries coming together, because I handshake a lot of ministries, like environment. An example is when people apply for reclamation, we make sure that it's not approved, it's not even sent for approval until we get what you call the EIA report, environmental impact assessment. We get TIA, how it affects traffic impact assessment, drainage, we make drainage requests of them. And until we get the go-ahead, we don't do that. And another thing I'm happy physical planning does is, if you reclaim, there's no way you're going to build on it. Physical planning will not process your planning approval until they get clearance from us. And of course, if you didn't get approval before you started to reclaim, it affects indiscriminate dredging affects it goes hand in hand with indiscriminate illegal reclamation.
Right.
And of course, when you reclaim illegally, it affects the coastal. We had a meeting on Friday, I believe, several ministries sat together and we decided that, listen, there's need for us to redefine an alignment so that we're able to effectively monitor that. And that's why we're saying, just like blood diamond, there's need to monitor sand from when it's dredged to when it gets to the end user. Of course, when you go after supply, it also affects, when you go after the demand, it also affects...
Do we export sand?
Not that I'm aware at the moment. But...
Okay, so just to put it in proper perspective, already existing beachfront operators, take for example these ones at the Elegushi, for instance, or the Lekek, for instance. So what happens? How does monitoring go on? What do you do to check them? Their excesses, especially their waste disposal arrangements that they have, and some of these abuses that you see, and extend it down the Ilashe and Ibeshi area as well. What exactly do you do to,
you would see that in some cases we've had to concession some beaches, and the reason is because dredging affects it in such a way that there's natural reclamation of the sand on those beaches to reclaim, to compensate for that has been taken out. And at the end of the day, the people that have the concessions would usually have to re-dredge to reclaim, so that we have beaches for families and things. Now, some of the effect is to curb the effect, you now have to put in place what you call groins. Now, these groins, government bears the cost of groins, and a kilometer of groin is about 11 billion. The cost of 1 kilometer of groin is about 11 billion.
Oh, we have at the Babbage.
Yes, called the Great Wall and things like that. It keeps out the water. 1 kilometer of that works out close. Well, I would say 400 meters is about 400 and some thousand. And we're planning, Lagos State is planning to do, the intention to protect that, the coastal space is to run, I think, about 60 kilometers of groins from Lekki all the way down to Ekwe.
Okay, let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. Still have our guests with us. Bisi, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so the first question I asked, I didn't really get the response to the question. So I want to take it another route.
Please go on again.
So, for instance, I grew up in Delta State.
Okay.
And I have a family that owns several beaches. Now, I know that the people who come to dredge, they pay the family and they are able to dredge. And so my dad acts as the watchdog for the family, ensuring that people who pay are licensed to dredge and then they go ahead. And I'm asking, how are you partnering with people in the community? So I want to believe, like Delta State, maybe in Lagos State, people who live around those areas, maybe the bales, the local chiefs, they have a stake in their fronts, beaches, and all of that. How are you negotiating or liaising with them to ensure that they help you stop the illegal dredgers, because it's going to affect? Do they even know that it can affect their daily living if they allow people just come in and dredge?
They're part of it.
Are you having conversations with them? Do they understand the implications of letting people just come in and dredge?
Oh, they certainly do, because some of them are aware of its impact, because you have cases, for example, in Ikorodu, where they dredge sand, and rather than stockpiling and having it drain, they put them in tippers and come on the roads, and that's what's largely responsible for. The road was, I think it wasn't too long ago that it was done, and it's in a bad state as a result of those illegal dredging activities. However, what we are planning on doing in the first quarter of next year is to have a summit, a waterfront summit. We're still in the process of putting things, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and pick out a date. The summit is, amongst many other things, would include some of the things you talked about, what you're talking about right now. Everything that has to do with water and waterfront infrastructure, I think would be bringing them, letting them understand its impact on their communities. When flooding, like we say, happens, it's those communities that are affected, and the cost of having to protect those communities comes at a very steep.
Let me take this call from Daniel. Good morning, Daniel. Thanks for calling. You're live.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How old are you?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, let's see. I can hear you.
What's going on?
Okay,
I
go
think
ahead,
you
Lina.
meant to call us.
Jump.
So I'd just like to know, like, what is Lagos State's plan that once you've gotten the hang or you've handled the illegal dredging part? What are the plans, maybe 5-10 years, for waterfront infrastructure that would attract tourism?
Oh, a lot. We had a presentation on Friday. Yes, it was on Friday, earlier on Friday. There's already an existing master plan, waterfront master plan, which sits in the Lagos master plan. And of course, it's like a hotel, or a club, or a bar, or a restaurant. You have to continue to redesign, so you keep it fresh for the people. And of course, in the same vein, in the same way, you need to continue to redesign maybe every 5 or 10 years to revisit, to keep it desirable for those who want to come to visit. And like I said, one of the things we have to look at first of all is how do we, it's not like we don't have people visiting. We have people visiting, but there's a desired figure we would like to have, you know.
Okay. Wait, let me take Lukman. I'll come to you, Nima. Lukman from Ikorodu, thanks for calling.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Okay. Please, I want to ask the Honorable Commissioner a question. Is it about this dredging?
Can't hear you very well, please.
Okay, there's a road in the Ikorodu, Okipishi Road, constructed by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu.
Go ahead.
When the road was constructed, it's probably the best road in Ikorodu. But today, it's an eyesore because of the dredging activity along that axis. I don't know whether it's legal or illegal. They are destroying the entire environment. Big trucks. The road is unpassable now. Come there every day. Traffic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And nobody's fixing it. No, and the only are collecting money from this dredger. The Lagos government give them license to come and dredge. And they said the license was for them to reclaim land. And they are not reclaiming any land, they are selling land, they are selling sand. Okay. Big trucks, every day. The road is terrible now.
Thank you very much, Lukman.
Oh yes, to a certain extent he's right. It was the road I had just mentioned. It was really very hurtful to have seen the amount of money spent on that road. And the only reason why this is happening, it's gone bad, is because of illegal dredging activities. I would quickly explain to you the control I'm talking about. We're not saying we can't dredge. We will dredge. We have to dredge. The only thing is it can be indiscriminate activities. For example, if we took this area, taking a look at the sand, the bath survey, the sand, doing sand search, we can now decide that we can't have no more than 5 people dredging here. And you can only dredge. That's why I said earlier that we need to know the quantity, the amount, the tonnage dredged, and we need to specify tonnage that has to be dredged, so that after, say, 5 years, we can say, you know what, 5 companies only can dredge here for 5 years, and then you have to leave it, you know, to recover, and then you move them elsewhere. But what you're having is in that area where there's meant to be just 5 people, you have about 100 people just going there and dredging indiscriminately. And that's affecting the ecological system. Yeah. And what we're saying is, again, with the sand dripping and all that, with water dripping
from the sand.
Water and tar don't go together, you know, with the weight also put on it. So it's a recipe for disaster, you know, and those things should not be allowed to happen. So basically we're looking at serious monitoring, very serious enforcement, and continuous communication.
So does your commission, your ministry, does it have a task force? Does it have a body that would be checking?
Oh, absolutely. That's the only way we would have to do this. You remember we resumed about a couple of months ago, and the very first thing I did was to have gone around to see for myself. And one of the things we're doing now is that 3 days of the week we're out on the road, including Saturdays. We're out on the road. We're out on water. We're you know, seeing what's going on, not just sitting in the office. Right. And of course, what we see, what we have seen so far, and what we continue to see is what has helped us to determine what and what we're going to be doing, which obviously I won't be able to say.
Let me take Iviari and I'll come to you, Nima. Iviari, thanks for calling. You live.
Good morning, Muna.
Morning.
Thank you very much. I like you ladies and the gentleman who is here. I am an Ijoman. He said he's going to the water. You know what? Lagos is the whole city. The northern part of Nigeria to Lagos, the easterners, the southern, all of us will come to Lagos, which is our capital before. The one thing that pains me, all that talk was I like that so much. I just look and thank you, women. But something pain me. What is pain me is that why all of us are sit down here and not talk of 19 Chibok girls disappear, and then the same thing, 12 girls, and you women are going to take a meeting. And I want.
I don't understand.
I'm confused.
Did you hear him? Now your people
It's very incoherent from being an German, which I thought would make him talk
About
sand
water
dredging
and
water, then he goes to
Chibok girl.
girls. You know.
I didn't get that. Sorry, Mr. Vera, we didn't get that. If you can call back, we'd really like to get your question so you understand, because everybody has an opportunity, has their view.
So
The view must be heard on this show. Go ahead.
Another I would, let me put this in better word, danger that I see happening in Lagos, where the lagoon, I live along the lagoon on Amodofi. You see them awarding waterfront to terminal operators, where they build, creating, just at the creating terminals on the water where cars now go. So we see them like, what we have in Apapa happening along that line. On Irede Road, they have the local dredgers doing their business, and this terminal is also operating. Who now goes in and checks that there's safety, at least environment of that area is protected, because we no longer have beaches there. They don't go.
Right.
What exactly is going to happen?
We already know why we don't. We already know why we don't have the beaches.
No, the terminals don't dredge, but they operate their business.
Well,
How safe is that?
well, the fact of the matter is, like I said, there's a case in court, or we've been in court, state and federal had been in court over a period. And so what I would suggest we do in that case, some of those approvals didn't come from the state. I would want to say it's best to just let the judgment be heard in January, and then we revisit the issue and the topic. But obviously, it's one of the things that we really have to look into, because, of course, the role of government is to protect lives and property.
Right.
You know.
We have to wrap up, but let me take it finally.
Yes, so before these summits that you've talked about will come, would there be any form of sensitizing the locals? Would there be any form of probably using jingles in local languages to just let them know the effects of dredging, so that they can police for you? Because I know the summit is going to be very elaborate. We may likely be spending money to organize that sort of summit. But what can we do? How can we solve this problem locally first before we get to that level of having a summit with stakeholders?
We're definitely we're hoping that we're able to have. It's a campaign, not just a jingle, not a one-off thing. It's a campaign. It's something that has to be continuous. We have to keep talking until we get the desired results. We're already in the process of doing that. We're also going to be engaging some people from the communities, of course, where they're able to reach out to us discreetly, so as not to have them hurt in any way. Okay. And that's why I said there's some plans that I wouldn't be able to disclose on television at the moment,
Right. All right, thank you very much, sir. We have to wrap up here, but thank you. I mean, congratulations on the work you're doing, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, let's go on a quick
everybody.
break now. When we return, move on to other topics. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.